listening to Reset Race. You're now tuned in to Reset Race. You're listening to Reset Race. You're now tuned in to Reset Race. What? Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Back on the grill again. We grilling them. You're listening to Reset Race. Adults need reparations to make America great. You're tuned in to Reset Race. We no longer starving while others eat off our plate. No. You're listening to Reset Race. We focused on our justice claim. We know what is at stake. You're tuned in to Reset Race. You'll find out who really about justice and really who fake. Lineage go back to US Southern plantations. Lineage, Jim Crow and mass incarceration. Redline and lynchings. We are old from this nation. You're not about justice if you ain't for reparations. MG the wise one. Cousin mother intellectual. Samantha bringing fire. Anti-black we pressing you. No permanent friends and no permanent enemies. The backbone of the country. To win you need our energy. Go on, see. Listening to Reset Race. You now tuned in to Reset Race. You're listening to Reset Race. You're now tuned in to Reset Race. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Back on the grill again. We grilling them. You're listening to Reset Race. Adults need reparations to make America great. You're tuned in to Reset Race. We no longer starving while others eat off our plate. No. You're listening to Reset Race. We focused on our justice claim. We know what is at stake. You're tuned in to Reset Race. You'll find out who really about justice and really who fake.
Oh, he ain't even with full white supremacists yet.
I'm sure it's coming.
5, 4.
An ideology that penalizes success.
Kenny, I want you to try to unpack something you said a moment ago. Made kind of a leap where you said that it was in fact the case that previously Asian excellence was suppressed and discriminated against, but that's no longer the case, or that's less of the case now. But why are you so sure that black excellence is not being suppressed today? Maybe you're right. What is the evidence for that, though? Like, why can we stipulate that there was discrimination in the recent past, but that it no longer exists today? Like, what happened that blew it all up?
So Heather McDonald did a study in the City Journal. You guys can look it up, called "The Problem of Blaming Everything on Bias." So in this study, which is has profound evidence, and I read it, I'm about to shed a very unfortunate truth to both of you, and this is not a truth that I relish saying, but the number of Black Americans right now who score higher than a 1550 on the SAT for math, or higher than a 1500 on the SAT for math, is astonishingly low. It's less than it's less than 3,000 people per class in America today.
Whoa!
You about to get the pseudo.
I gotta get him. I gotta get him. I gotta get him.
You about to get the pseudo.
I gotta get him. I gotta get him. I gotta get him. Okay, I'm an old dude, right? I'm a private school kid, right? Because my parents sacrificed to pay for me to go to a private school from sophomore year to damn near the end of senior year, SAT prep was part of the curriculum. It was part of the curriculum, right? And my ADD ass, I did well for a guy who has ADD at that time, back in those days. But education matters. Resources to adapt when you don't have that education matters, right? This dude, again, fuck you, Kenny Wu, right, is erasing all those obstacles in the way of most Black people, right? And again, and a lot of public schools had that same type of SAT prep program in the wealthier spaces. So we're talking about community wealth as well as individual wealth, right? My parents were able to pay our way into these spaces, right? This guy, and I can look at him and tell, he has never been inside a serious serious general population public school in his fucking life ever, right? And you're going to compare that experience again, what you had to go through to get where you are, to what Black people have experienced in this country based on policy, practice, and everything else that we had to go through, and history. Again, fuck Kenny.
Okay, so this is not good. I mean, this is not good. I mean, put it any way. I don't relish saying that, but the number of Asian Americans who score higher than 1,500 on the SAT is comparatively much larger.
What are the, Kenny? What are the numbers of Black students who are in wildly underperforming schools compared to Asian American students?
They are in underperforming schools. They are in underperforming
right,
schools.
So
get him, Ryan. Get him, Ryan.
Right. So okay. So wouldn't a disparate education system disproportionately impact those who are disproportionately in underperforming schools? I mean, why? Like, this doesn't seem that complicated.
What's the context of like the systemic climate?
Right.
So they are, first of all, Black Americans are in underperforming schools. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But they're in underperforming schools. But why are the schools underperforming? Why are the schools underperforming? Well, the schools have discipline issues. There are poor discipline issues in these schools. Furthermore, there's a lot of grade inflation in these schools. So kids are basically being passed from grade to grade. And I know my book is about Asian Americans, but here I am talking about a different community. So take it with what you will. But students are basically being passed from grade.
All right. So, oh my God. So he admits that he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, but he continues talking about it. And yeah, I mean, look, this is ignoring like over a century of like discrimination in schools and like a complete misunderstanding of how society has been constructed in this country and how the educational system has been set up to kind of fuck us over, and somehow it's our fault because we're having
blaming the victim.
And
always.
I mean, it's okay. So let's say, all right, I have behavioral issues. Why does that mean my book is falling apart versus the other school that
yeah, asbestos falling out the ceiling. That's because I got behavioral issues. Fuck out of here.
Why doesn't my school have computers like these other schools?
Like, what are you talking about?
Other kids working on iPads and shit, and I'm sitting here with a holy book. Keep going, Mud.
Yeah, it's like this shit is like it's such a denial of reality, and I mean, and you saw like he got stopped in his tracks at first because he knew it was real, and then he tried to find something to like argue. Man, I just don't like. I don't know, like why or this is the thing. Like this has been going on for such a long time in this country, where people like this have been getting platformed in media spaces, and it used to be, a thing where, it was just the mainstream TV, but now it's like even independent media outlets are still propping up the same narrative. Like at some point, aren't we going to be tired of having this discussion when we know better? Like it comes down to a distribution of resources. Everybody knows we've been deprived. So why are we ignoring that problem? Why are we going all these different routes to like, I don't know. I just think that we've been set up to fail. They've been set up to succeed. And it's not enough that they have the position that they have. They still have to continue to stab us in our backs so that they can hold on to what they have and gain more power.
You're right.
at the expense of us. And then we are made out to be the assholes when we point this shit out.
We're xenophobes. We're punching down, but I can't punch down on somebody who has more money than me.
You're right.
At the expense of us. And then we are made out to be the assholes when we point this shit out.
We're xenophobes. We're punching down, but I can't punch down on somebody who has more money than me.
That is a fact, especially in America.
And on that note, John, I love you, but it's time for you to go, or else you're gonna have problems at home.
Oh no, I got it. When y'all see me get off, I told my mom 5. I'm like, give me till 5. We getting busy.
Okay.
Give me till 5.
No
Like,
worries.
like,
I want everybody to keep
Yeah,
the
we
women
good,
in
we
their
good.
lives happy.
Yeah,
no.
tell mom we said thank you.
Yeah, word up. I'm gonna tell her too, man.
Yeah, do that. I'm serious. Tell her.
No, she love y'all. She love y'all. She say y'all keep me out of trouble. Like she's like, we're getting all black. I like it. All right.
Let's keep this rocking. Because we still got a bunch of stuff to cover. Y'all see I got 8 million tabs open at the top. All right, let's keep going.
To grade, under grade inflation. And as a result, you have in New York City, you have these middle schools that have an 80% or 90% graduation rate or a 90% pass rate between the grades 6 through 8. But 15% of these kids are scored proficiently on the standardized exam that should enable them to pass. So there's a massive cover up that's going on in these schools.
But Kenny,
Yeah.
what's your point? Like, don't you think that what I talked about earlier, the hollowing out of the black middle class in the 80s and 90s, coupled with the drug war massacre?
My point is, if we're going to address the problem, we have to address the real problem. And the real problem is in these educational communities is not systemic racism done by whites against blacks. It is the failure of the public education system, which is made up of not just whites, but blacks, Latinos, and Asians as well. And so that's the problem. It's not racism. That's what I'm saying.
Who created this system?
Jesus Christ.
So this system was created by people of color in 1900. This is some revisionist history, like a mother.
I gotta give kudos to Ryan Grimm for the pushback and his little partner. She had a little assist there, right?
It's bad, and she's right wing, and you could tell when you could tell she's uncomfortable. You could tell she's mad. She even got to stand up for black people, but she knew she would have got shredded if she didn't push back because this dude was being a racist.
Yeah, and I think and you see what he said, community education. You see how slick he was with that? Community education. That means it's the community's fault the education is failing.
Yep.
He thinks he's slick. But what you got, man? I know you got something.
I mean, that's what it is. Like, it's going to be a thing where the parents are responsible, even though their taxes are supposed to be, being used for the schools. And then the property tax situation in this country, like, you deprive us of economic opportunities. Thus, you get around this whole thing of having to provide us with schools of equal quality, even though you had a Supreme Court ruling saying that you had to do that. You found a way to do it, but now it's not based on race. It's just based on the fact that you fucked us economically.
And property taxes. Property taxes is how they get us because we live in poor neighborhoods. I want to spell it out because some people don't know.
That's intentional.
At this point, shouldn't everybody know? Like, this is what I'm saying. Everybody that's like important, that like is paying attention to politics on some level, like, you should know this. Even the conservatives that like you argue with them, they know that. They're not denying that reality. And it's like the politicians who are the people that should be changing the shit, they know it too, and they know how fucked up the system is, but they never want to touch it.
These are facts. John, what you got, man? Thanks, Mud.
Yeah, no, y'all right, man. He's just trying to reverse it back on us, man. Like, they love blaming us for what they done to us, like, because shit is crazy. And then with the property tax thing, like, I mean, where I'm from, like, a lot of the houses, like what a lot of the houses that people live in, they don't even own the house. They 2-3 family houses. They rent these. Somebody else outside the community own the houses. Like, and then there's also buildings, tenement buildings, projects, stuff like that, apartment buildings, stuff like that. So the property, so you're not getting a lot of revenue from those property taxes. Like, and that translates into poor schools due to things like redlining, the white flight, shit like that. So he's throwing this shit out the bathwater, just saying the hood is fucked up. That's because black people don't know what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. That's why your school's failing. When, you know, they deprived us from the resources, like Mud said. So, just this is some hardcore racist shit, man. he kind of hardcore with this shit, you know what I'm saying? So
It is. Yeah. I'm sorry, Mud, were you done? I just jumped to John like
No, Mud just clicked out, so keep going until he comes back in.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm good, Sam. What you got?
I don't have anything else. Like I said, this dude is a full white supremacist. If this was a white man on TV saying this, there'd be an uproar. I'm gonna keep saying it over and over again. There's a reason why this isn't on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is, we see a lot of Asian folks who traffic in these white supremacist tropes, and they traffic in these spaces. I mean, it is what it is,
Yeah.
Now again, it doesn't reflect. It doesn't mean all people who are Asian are racist. I'm not saying that, but you see a lot of Asian folks in these spaces, and it may be time for you Asian folks to start policing your people.
Yeah,
right?
I agree, because that's what you tell us.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly, Sam. They always tell us
Black people were held accountable for all people who attacked those elderly Asian folks. And we had a whole discussion about how we don't play that in our community, which is funny because it was like months later I saw on Twitter where this homeless crazy dude, black, attacked this elderly black woman, and they beat the brakes off of him in the street. People was running from corners of the street to whoop his ass. We don't play that in our community. So, but yeah, no, this dude's a whole racist. It is what it is. Like I said, we still got a lot more, because we didn't even get into the little goodies and handouts that they got. So we'll get to that part. But everything that he said, I'm just like, this is the same shit. This is shit Zilla be saying in our shit about minorities. We already dispelled all these myths. Like, we did it with scholarship. Again, we showed the reports. Like, I don't have a lot to say. Like, for as much as I crack jokes and as much as I be talking shit, but like at the end of the day, I know my shit and I can pull it up and I can disprove. We already disproved everything he said. So let's play the rest of this, and then we can go through all these economic empowerment acts that Asians have been getting since the 90s.
All right, hold on a second. Mud, what you got, Mud?
Yeah, come back, Mud.
I just wanted to say this. The whole thing with the cultural shit, we understand that it's just one big dog whistle.
Fuck yeah.
To say that we're an inferior race. That's all this whole conversation is. Like, all this is like, we are inferior, and we're responsible for our situation. And like every piece of scholarship, there's nothing that has any substance to it that says that denies basically that we have been screwed over in every form of how the society is set up. Like, even from the highways, like it doesn't even make sense the way some of these highways are going through cities. But the reason why it was done was to destroy our fucking neighborhoods. Like, no one, like, the whole system is set up in a screwed up way. Why would you want a country where the education is based on property taxes when you're telling people that education is the thing that is bridging the gap of opportunity? Like, it doesn't make sense. If you're going to sell people that dream, you would make sure that all the schools are of a certain quality so that people could actually use that as a ladder up. But the reality is, it's not based on anything like that. There is no meritocracy in this country. Even with colleges, because when we talk about the legacy high, like admissions, none of that shit is based on you being the best of the best. Like, it's all bullshit.
Indeed,
sorry, I'm ranting.
No, you good, Mud. That was
very focused. No, that was very focused and targeted. Y'all gotta look up that shit with the freeway racism. That shit, there's a reason why it be flashing in the damn thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we only got a few more minutes on this. Let's keep riding, man. Thank you, Mud.
So I think Ryan's point, and it gets into sort of chicken or egg, Ryan's point is that that is a consequence of systemic racism.
It's not racism, it's just a system that disproportionately disadvantages one particular race.
Based on
but that's not racism. What would you call that?
Disadvantages.
That's what you just said. You just said that the public education system disproportionately. Whose fault is it? The people that run the system, obviously.
So this is where it becomes.
Who runs the system?
Who do you think runs the system?
People?
I mean, I think
there are so many. This is the problem with the systemic racism argument is that.
So I'm curious to know if you have done much work with educators and if you see any applications for your work specifically in K-12 school settings.
Absolutely. I am a former professor of education. So I've worked many years in large teacher training programs. To be really blunt, I think our education system is the belly of the beast, along with Hollywood, basically. Hollywood pumps out the stories, the images, the representations, and schools reproduce inequality by basically being sorting mechanisms, and our schools sort children into unequal places in society. I think everyone knows that. If we didn't know that, we would not care what schools our children went to. But do we care what schools our children go to? Oh, yes. And will we go across town and to great inconvenience to get them into a better school so they have a better chance? Even as we say, gosh, we don't know any people of color in our neighborhood, so how are we supposed to get to know people, right? We'll make effort where we want something for our children. I think teachers are critical, and I think regardless of intentions, when you have an overwhelmingly white teaching force, right? We have a very racially homogeneous teaching force. You inevitably have the reproduction and the dissemination of racism and white supremacy just by virtue of the homogeneity, right? Most of those white teachers grew up in mostly white neighborhoods, went to mostly white schools, rarely, if ever, had a teacher themselves who wasn't white. And that's just the teachers. We haven't talked about the curriculum, the testing, the tracking, the funding, right? Schools are just incredibly efficient at reproducing racial inequality.
That the people, the superintendents of a lot of these schools are not white. They're not white.
We're back in the city government.
Never mind, let's keep going.
You have to take accountability for your own communities. That's what you have to do. You have to, because that's the only way you can achieve, it's the only way you can succeed in this country.
With no money?
If you take accountability for your own community and your own actions.
Houseway.
In a country that's 70% white, you're gonna say that the administrators of the public school system are just uniquely causing
I'm not a fan, but you did
this
good
to
here.
occur and doesn't have anything to do with the broader system?
And Kenny, we have to run, so this will be last word to you on this.
I think that the problems
now.
that are
White
going
man
on and in the Black and Hispanic communities. By the way, I'm talking about very specific Black and Hispanic communities because I studied the New York City public school system a lot, and it's in my book, An Inconvenient Minority. These problems that are going on in New York City's Black and Latino population is a result of failures at every level. You cannot just pin it unicausally on white racism.
Kenny Xu, the author of An Inconvenient Minority, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Kenny's a racist and he can go eat a dick.
You know what I mean? Failures at every level mean them niggas ain't shit.
But again, it's white people creating policy, which dictates how much funding that these places get, right? This is America. When there's a problem, you throw money at it. That's always been the answer, right? But we don't do that here. And they don't do that in our communities until it's time to gentrify. Then they start throwing money, right? Mm-hmm. All right, Sam. Let's get this data dump going.
Well, I don't know if I feel like reading all of this one, but y'all need to go. This is from Brookings Institute, Schools, Black Children, and Corporal Punishment. But basically, they punish our children at a higher rate than they do white students for the same shit. So again, that's systemic racism as well. And he used that as another thing. So again, go read this one because I don't want to go through this whole thing. So here's the other thing, right? They like to talk about
Hey Sam, can I talk about that real quick before you move on?
Yeah, go ahead, of course.
Okay. So a lot of the things that in our communities that we're punished for, and a lot of times by white teachers and white administrators, right, would be seen as leadership qualities in white communities, right? When a black kid is defiant, right, a white kid is displaying his personality, right? So we see this a lot, and a lot of it comes from trying to suppress the growth of black leaders, right? We can talk about potential black leaders. We can talk about J. Edgar Hoover's memo about the Black Messiah, but it's rooted in the same type of thinking, right? You want to get these kids early and keep them from fighting for themselves in their community as something that they should be doing. And that is part of this punishment thing. I just want to put that out there. Go ahead, Sam.
Well, let's rock, right? So remember the Asian dude in the black and white video brought up, we have the San Francisco riots. This dude brought up, we have the San Francisco riots, so here we go. San Francisco riots. Look at the year, y'all. 1877. This is one of the biggest things they can point to, and this is probably one of the most relative. Because once you start hitting the early 1900s, they weren't attacking Asians like that. And also, let's get into the numbers of how many of y'all was really here. Because, so this is the thing I like to bring up. And, it's just, again, 1877. So you got to go all the way back to 1877 to even find something to bring up. Like, okay. So here's where's the one Mud sent me? Because I like that one. But I like this one too. I want y'all to look at this. So I'm going to bring up the one that Mud took too. But if you look to my left here, let's pull this up here. Boom. 1870. There were 63,199 Chinese had immigrated that year. If you look above, right, this is still like under 100,000 Chinese people the time when this shit happened. It was under 100,000. So when he talks about that Asians have went through stuff, I am sure he is not one of these 100,000 descendants. So you cannot, like Mud was saying, you cannot transpose your guys' story on these people because y'all don't even have the same lineage. You guys came at different times.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
No, let's get into one Mud gave me, though. The one Mud gave me is better. And then when he was talking, I already showed you this one. This is the disparity, though, with the Japanese, Indians, Chinese, Filipinos. You see the big difference. They got a wealth gap in their shit too. So while he's sitting here talking all this trash and talking about how Asians are proving that there's no model minority, I think the Koreans and the Vietnamese would argue
there was
differently.
a crazy ratio where it's like
can I also say this?
Please, because I'm looking
men
for stuff.
versus women. As far as like in their community. So what had to happen is that they had to mix in with other races. So yeah, so like we're talking about, that population, essentially for the most part assimilating in to other groups. So if we're going to co-opt their stories, some of us walking around that may not look traditionally Chinese or whatever, we might also be able to claim that lineage.
That's a good point, bud. Damn. Yeah, and also you folks look at that graph with all those nationalities and how much nationalities or ethnicities within the Asian community. You see Japanese is at the top, right? Remember those folks got reparations. I just want to throw that out there. All right, let's go.
Goddamn.
So, Izzy, you and I are we're gonna read this guy. So we're gonna go through the timeline of Chinese immigration since you want to steal other people's stories. So I'll read a bit, MG, and then I'll toss it to you and we'll go back and forth, right?
All right, that'll work.
1785. Now, mind you, we'd already been here. But 1785. Yep. 3 Chinese seamen arrived in the continental United States aboard ships in Baltimore. 1790.
3? Go ahead, Sam.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Sorry, that's all I speak. You can you count to 3 in German for me? You got that?
Yeah, let me know. Ice white dry. Yeah, let's go.
All right. The 1790, the Nationalization Act of 1790 restricts
naturalization. I'm sorry.
I didn't say naturalization. What did I say?
Yeah, you said nationalization, but naturalization. I'm sorry. It's because people who just listen to audio. I just want to look
I'm sorry, forgive me, y'all. The Naturalization Act of 1790 restricts citizenship to free white persons of good moral character. So this is for all of y'all who don't understand how y'all didn't get to be citizens if you were non-whites after 1964. 1790 is when they passed that on y'all. So let's keep going. The law would be enforced until 1952. And they didn't really open it up until after 1965. Okay, I'm gonna slip down. Let's go to 1830. Oh, now listen, racial minorities would be limited. So again, where did all of these Chinese people come from? There was a few. So here we go, 1830, first US Census of Chinese in America records 3 Chinese living in the United States. Is 3 still?
Damn, where'd everybody else go?
Did we go home and come back? Or did somebody come?
Well, I mean, you got to think about it. You got to think about it. If there were 3 of them, where are the rest going to come from?
And we got to remember, slavery didn't end until 1865. Let's keep that in mind, folks. Let's go.
Yep. So weren't we building railroads in like 1830 already? Weren't the railroads already being built by slaves? Okay, just saying. Okay, so 1830, Chinese sailors and peddlers visit New York. 1844, United States and China signed treaty, peace, amity, and commerce. 1847, Young Nguyen and 2 other Chinese students arrive in the U.S. for schooling. 1847, we still slaves. Gold is discovered in California for the gold rush. 1850, Chinese American population in the U.S. is about 4,000. So 4,000 Chinese and built the whole railroad system. After half of it was done.
Damn.
Well, I'm not gonna say half of it. There's a really good book on this about the blacks building the railroads before the Chinese came and finished it. But I'll have to go and find that because that was not my thing. Somebody else, I think it was Uluhim or something like that on Twitter. He has some of the best fucking history threads because he'll go through and break down a book, something serious. But okay. Sorry, I lost my whole thing. 4,000 out of 23.2 million. So we still haven't gotten to 1877 with the riot. The California Supreme Court decision, People versus Hall.
Hold on, Sam. Can we go back? Remember, the Chinese in California form associations for mutual protection. That's important. Go ahead, Sam. Oh yeah, that's 1850. That's 1850. That's important. Go ahead,
Sam. I'm sorry. I went right over that.
It's all right, Sam.
This is why we have a team. Okay. So Chinese couldn't testify. They got the Negro treatment. California legally prohibits Chinese and Mongolian immigration.
Means Asian. Go ahead.
Chinese American population in the U.S. in 1860 is under 35,000 out of 31.4 million. At this point, again, we are still enslaved. So this is a really small group. This is this is a very small group of people who, if they were getting the business, 40,000 is a small group.
There are 4 million of us.
Exactly. The United States prohibits importation of Chinese coolies on American vessels. So I'm assuming those are the Chinese from like Jamaica and stuff.
Yeah, the coolies were slaves or indentured servants from other places other than Africa.
I did not know that. Thank you.
Usually Asia. It would be Indians would be considered coolies and Chinese would be considered coolies.
Thank you. I did not know that.
These were ineligible for citizenship, but they were also ineligible for enslavement. But what about the coolies? As Moonho Jung has shown in Coolies and Cane, Chinese laborers in the U.S. were persistently associated with coolieism, and through coolieism with that other form of unfree labor, slavery. So the Chinese were ineligible for enslavement, but the mediating term of coolie brings the two terms into a plausible relationship with one another. The point here is what was accomplished ideologically by positing this association, namely tainting Chinese laborers with blackness and slaveness. As Rudy Batzel discusses, the Working Men's Party in California viewed the large-scale employment of the Chinese as capital's attempt to resurrect slavery in another form in order to undercut white labor once again, right, as the slave power had. So the rhetoric of Cooleyism allowed the Working Men's Party to mobilize anti-black affect against the slave in the push for Chinese exclusion. But wasn't the Asiatic constitutively not black and not slave? It bears emphasizing that being compared with coolies and slaves did not mean being indistinguishable from slaves. To the contrary, distinguishability is a prerequisite for comparison. Comparison requires difference. We do not compare identical things, X and X, we compare X and Y. It was because they were known to be not black, because they had not blackness to lose, that the slave comparison could be used to tarnish the Chinese. This is apparent if we look at the limit case, Chinese indentured laborers in Cuba. They were technically voluntary laborers, right? They signed labor contracts, they received wages, and the contracts were called papers. Yet there were many aspects of their experience that made them seem unfree, compared, for instance, to Chinese immigrants in California. Lisa Yun, in the book The Coolie Speaks, concludes Chinese coolies were in fact slaves, that their contracts or papers were a mere pretense. But there are many reasons to believe coolies were in a privileged position relative to slaves, from the distinctions made between the two in Spanish colonial law, as you can see in the first box, to the division of work on sugar plantations in Cuba. For me, the most compelling evidence that coolies were not slaves is precisely the evidence that Yun adduces to show that they were, namely the testimonies that coolies gave to the commission that China sent to investigate the coolie trade in Cuba in the 1870s. I don't know how many of you have looked at this testimony, coolie testimony, that was produced by this commission in a report. This is a torrential record of physical suffering and grief, suicide and murder, anger and hopelessness. A recurrent theme in this testimony is the coolies' bitterness that they were being treated like slaves. Again, Yun reads this as evidence the coolies were slaves. But as Rebecca Scott suggests in Slave Emancipation in Cuba, the coolies' testimony rather shows that they jealously guarded their superior status to slaves. The complaint, we were treated like slaves, should be read as we are not slaves and should not be treated as such. Right? There's an indignation that the coolies are showing at this ontological misreading of them as slaves. Plantation owner Eliza Ripley recalled the poorest, lowest coolie carried his contract on his person and never hesitated to assert his rights. The fact that the coolies' papers did not mean all they purported to mean does not indicate they were therefore meaningless. Papers did not make the coolie a free laborer, a liberal subject, an autonomous rights-bearing individual. But they were an ontological marker, tagging the coolie as not property, as a being who had to consent to being coerced. This is why coolie traders held Chinese men in barracoons for weeks and even months, beating them and starving them until they agreed to sign contracts. The coolie was different from the slave, not because he was at all times treated better than the slave, but because he was considered a custodian of his own freedom. And so he had to consent to its surrender, even if the consent was obtained through force.
I'm here to help.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you. See, I don't know everything. I don't try to act like I do either. All right. 1860. Well, I know what I know. I know what I know because I've researched and I've read it in books. Like, it's not like I woke up and magically knew it. So, and it's not like, watching someone on YouTube for 3 years gave me 15 years worth of book knowledge, but whatever. The United States and China ratified the Burlingame Seward Treaty, which sanctions mutual immigration between the two countries. So that's 1868. So we're just getting out of slavery. So they let a handful of y'all come over. It looks like 1869, first transcontinental railroad is completed with significant Chinese immigrant labor. So y'all got here 1850. So between 1850 and 1860, so in 19 years, okay. But like I said, I'm not gonna get into the railroad stuff because there's a whole book, and we might have to do that another time. But I don't want to. I don't want to start digging that up because I can, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, significant isn't also in the eye of the beholder. It could be 20%, 30%. Some people consider that significant. But go ahead.
They definitely did. They definitely did the
put in work.
of the westward expansion.
Mm-hmm.
But like what was built in the south, the north, the east, that was slaves.
Yeah, but we got to remember this is the transcontinental railroad, meaning one from one coast to the other, right? So everything else up until 1869, well, up until between the time they came here. So we have to think about that. That is one continuous railroad, right? Everything else that feeds into that is something different. All right, let's go.
Okay. So 1870 Chinese population is 63,199 out of 38.5 million. 1870 Congress approves the National Naturalization Act, barring Chinese from obtaining US citizenship. The act also prevents immigration of Chinese women who have marital partners in the United States. Chinese and Japanese men must show evidence in support of a woman's moral character in the case of prospect and actual wives of Chinese and Japanese descent. So 1871, we still haven't gotten yet. Okay, so anti-Chinese violence erupts in Los Angeles and other cities. So, they're getting the Negro treatment. 1871. Congress passes the Page Law, which bars Chinese, Japanese, and Mongolian prostitutes, felons, and contract labor immigration. Okay.
Labor immigration, that's important. That means white folks are getting mad about them doing the jobs that they wanted to do. Let's go.
Yeah, that's it. So 1878, a federal district court in California rules Chinese ineligible for naturalization citizenship. So this is the year after this riot that they keep talking about. And then 5 years after that, give or take a little less, no, not even 2 years, right? No, this is 75. So 7 years later, they passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, right? After this, so they barred the prostitutes, and then, made you ineligible for naturalization in 4 years later. Okay, boom, 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 right? So again, what's your population here? Congress passes Chinese Exclusion Act 1882. US, I want to get to the number. Okay, so at 1890, there was only 107,488, 62.9 million. I'm not going to keep going through this, but most of y'all don't descend from these people. You can go through this. I'm going to just skip. 1930, 102,159 of y'all here. Your population didn't grow like that.
And still, there's over 4 million of us here.
Still. And then
maybe about 10 million at that point. Yeah.
1950, 150,000. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, it stops at 2000. 2000, you're up to 2 million, almost 3 million. 1990, 1.6 million, almost 1.7. So, here we go. Let's 1970. So 1970, you were at 230. In 1970, you were at 292,000. Y'all came once shit was good. Quit playing us. And then you came here with college degrees when people didn't have college degrees.
Hey, Steph, can you go back up? What was the last time we counted that population? I'm assuming
this is 2000.
I'm talking about the night previous to 1970, where it says 237,000. When was the last time we counted? Where that I just want to try and see what the jump looked like.
Well, here's 1950. So from 1950 to 1970.
So they jumped from 1970. There's 150,000 up to 237,000. That's wow. All right, keep riding, Sam. I just want to see what that jump looked like. Yeah.
So this is what we're saying. If we want to have a conversation about what happened to Chinese people when they were getting the nigger treatment in this country, we can. But y'all ain't them people. That's what we're saying.
Yeah,
that's what we're saying. So you can't take their story.
Absolutely.
And like Mud said, a lot of them probably married into the population because you see their numbers didn't really go up like that, which means they were marrying into other populations.
Yep. Let's keep in mind.
Because nobody was killing them. Nobody was killing them. But let's just keep it a buck. Like nobody was going through and like slaughtering masses amounts of Asians between
And burning
1920
the towns down. Yeah.
to like night. So I'm just saying, like, if their population wasn't moving, it was because A, immigration, they weren't coming in, and two, they had to
And
be
they kept
having
women from
kids
coming
out.
in. Yep. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. And for those of you who are looking at this timeline and wondering what the fuck is this comes from Berkeley.
Yes,
The Bancroft School in
Berkeley.
Berkeley and in California. So this ain't fucking Liberty University, right? This is fucking Berkeley. So
Yeah.
so I don't want to hear this is some right wing propaganda. I don't want to hear that shit. You kiss my ass on that.
You know it's coming from our homies. You know it's coming from our homies.
So, all right. So here we go. What's the name of this, Sam? What's the name of this article? All right. The real reasons the U.S. became less racist toward Asian Americans. This should be interesting. All right, here we go. Between 1840 and 1970,
1940.
I'm sorry. Between 1940 and 1970, something remarkable happened to Asian Americans. Not only did they surpass African Americans in average household earnings, but they also closed the wage gap with whites.
Wage.
Wage as opposed to wealth. Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Many people credit this upward mobility to investments in education. But according to a recent study by Brown University, another very left university, economist Nathaniel Hilger, schooling rates among Asian Americans didn't change all that significantly during these 3 decades. That's interesting. Instead, Hilger's research suggests that Asian Americans started to earn more because their fellow Americans became less racist towards them. How did that happen? About the same time the Asian Americans were climbing the socioeconomic ladder, they also experienced a major shift in their public image. At the outset of the 20th century, Asian Americans had often been portrayed as threatening, exotic, and degenerate. Like we see with those opium dens and all the stuff that we see in movies sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of my favorite movies, Tombstone. Okay, go. But by the 1950s and 1960s, the idea of the model minority had begun to take root. Newspapers often glorified Asian Americans as industrious, law-abiding citizens that kept their heads down and never complained.
Sounds like that they did that to combat us.
Mm-hmm, indeed, because we were demanding rights, God forbid. Some people think that racism toward Asians diminished because Asians proved themselves through their actions. But that is only a sliver of the truth. Then, as now, the stories of successful Asians were elevated, while the stories of less successful Asians were diminished. As historian Ellen Wu explains in her book, The Color of Success, the model minority stereotype has a fascinating origin.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm. The Color of Success, in case you want to read it, again, by Ellen Wu, Color of Success. The model minority stereotype has a fascinating origin story, one that's tangled up in geopolitics and the Cold War and the Civil Rights Movement. The model minority narrative may have started with Asian Americans, but it was quickly co-opted by white politicians who saw it as a tool to win allies in the Cold War. Ooh, discrimination was
They gonna
not...
make us buy this they gonna make us get a fucking subscription so we can finish reading
Washington Post, yeah.
I hate Bezos.
Discrimination was not a good look on the international stage, right? So again, folks, read Ellen Wu, The Color of Success, right? Because
I so gotta read that now.
Yeah, there's a deeper story here on why Asians became became considered a model minority. All right.
They ain't gonna charge us. Okay.
All right.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry. What were we gonna say though? I know you wanted to say something.
No. Go ahead. We can do this. Okay. All right.
Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out where we were.
How to next go down? Next paragraph. We read this already.
Glorify. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Some people think racism is that. Oh yeah. But the combat.
To combat
right
racism.
Okay. Here we go.
Exactly.
Sorry.
To combat racism, minorities in the United States have often attempted to portray themselves as upstanding citizens capable of assimilating into mainstream culture. Asian Americans were no different, Wu writes. Some, like the Chinese, sought respectability by promoting stories about their obedient children and their traditional family values. Oh, the tiger moms, right?
Yeah.
Japanese pointed out their wartime service. Yeah, welcome to our world, as proof of their shared Americanness. African Americans in the 1940s made very similar appeals, but in the post-war moment, Wu argues it was only convenient for political leaders to hear the Asian voices. Oh, so they listened to Asian voices over black voices who were saying the same story and had the same. Oh man, that's interesting. Not shocking, but interesting.
I'm gonna give you a little breather, and then I'm gonna let you come back in. So I'm gonna let you take a sip. Yeah, go ahead. Say whatever you need. Go ahead.
Are we saying that basically white people are picking the winners and losers in our society?
Who'd have thunk that, huh?
Nah, the Asian dude said that there's no racism.
Kenny Wu said that's not the case.
Oh.
He wrote a book, therefore he's special. He understands. He's expert.
And he had on a tie or a suit.
I could have sworn our people have been saying this day one since this country has been founded, but okay.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Go ahead, Sam.
Thanks, just give me a second, guys. Just give me a second.
Mm-hmm. I can finish this paragraph while you do that.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. The model minority narrative may have started with Asian Americans, but it was quickly co-opted by white politicians who saw it as a tool to win allies in the Cold War. Discrimination was not a good look for the international stage. Embracing Asian Americans provided a powerful means for the United States to proclaim itself a racial democracy, thereby credentialed to assume the leadership of the free world, Wu writes. Stories about Asian American success were turned into propaganda. By the 1960s, anxieties about the civil rights movement caused white Americans, oh boy, to further invest in positive portrayals of Asian Americans. The image of hardworking Asian people became an extremely convenient way to deny the demands of African Americans. As Wu describes in her book, both liberal and conservative politicians pumped up the image of...
Sorry, I was muted. Hold up. Where are we? Mm-hmm. Hold on, because you said something. Isn't that what this dude just did right now?
Mm-hmm. It sure did. I'm sorry,
where were we? Because
the image of hard work down by the 1960s, right? The next one? Yeah.
Woo wee. Mm-hmm. Woo wee. So what? So
as
both liberal and conservative politicians pumped up the image of Asian Americans as a way to shift the blame for Black poverty. If Asians can find success within the system, politicians ask, why couldn't African Americans?
What? But critical race theory isn't true. That's what Kenny Wu says.
No, but wait. I'm sorry.
Kenny.
Y'all gotta yeah, I gotta reread some stuff. Sorry, y'all.
Go ahead.
Forgive me, but this is how I remember shit, and this is how my brain works. Hold on. So the model minority narrative may have started with Asian Americans, but it was quickly co-opted by white politicians who saw it as a tool to win allies in the Cold War. Discrimination was not a good look on the international stage. Interesting, because wasn't Germany talking a lot of shit about how Germany and Hitler and shit talking a lot of shit about how they was treating Negroes?
Mm-hmm. And the Russians still do it.
Russians too?
Putin is always in the president's ass stumble. What about the Negroes?
The Asians too.
Just to fuck with them.
Remember when the Asian dude was talking shit on Twitter about how we treat Black Americans here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry. Let's get So embracing Asian Americans, providing a powerful means for the United States to proclaim itself a racial democracy and thereby credential to assume the leadership of the free world. Woo, right? Stories about Asian American success were turned into propaganda. Woo! Mm-hmm. By the 1960s, anxieties about the civil rights movement caused white Americans to further invest in positive portrayals of Asian Americans. The image of hardworking Asians became an extremely convenient way to deny demands of African Americans. That's what this dude was just doing. He basically was like, no, we don't know because we're here. And since we're doing good, y'all don't even understand how y'all just fall into the trap. Yeah. All of this has already been proved. All of this has happened before. All of this will happen again. Go ahead, MG.
Yeah, and we gotta look, right. So those of you who are on social media, right? While at the same time that the left is shitting on white fragility and the right is shitting on critical race theory, there are slick folks trying to slide eugenics back into the picture. right? Race and your right. Race and your race dictates your intelligence, right? So you'll see this shit. They'll say they won't say it's eugenics, obviously. They'll say what did one guy say? An African dude, no less. Of course, he said this about. He said that your IQ score can show you people with higher IQ scores are more likely to break through the racial wealth gap, right, or succeed, right? So my thing was the IQ test is not something that the average person takes, right? Because it costs money, and because psychologists administer these tests, right? So if you're checking IQ, that means you're in an institution that values the IQ score enough to pay for testing. Most schools in the United States don't do that. And we're not even going to talk about how the IQ tests are lean towards white culture, or at least against black culture. We're not even talking about that. So all this stuff, as they suppress talk of racism and from the white community towards us, while they're suppressing that talk, they're bringing up this old shit like Kenny Wu and his shit with this Asian minority, with the model minority myth. At the same time, we're hearing echoes of eugenics again. These things matter. Keep that in mind. All right, let's go. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna read some more. I know I'm going back over what MG said, but that shit, woo, that's blew my socks off. If Asians could find success within the system, politicians ask, why can't you lazy niggas? That's not what they said. They say African Americans, but that's what they really meant. And that's what they said in the rooms. Because, LBJ loved using the N-word. That was his shit.
He's like salt on his chicken.
The insinuation was that hard work, along with unwavering faith in the government and liberal democracy, as opposed to political protests, were the keys to overcoming racial barriers, as well as achieving full citizenship. Isn't this the same shit that motherfucking immigrants keep telling us?
That same guy I was talking to, right? He said he mentioned the term agreeableness. When he's talking about his eugenics shit. Well, we didn't talk about agreeableness. Agreeableness is act more white. That's what that means. Let's go over it. Oh my God, let's go. The eugenics dude was horrible. Let's go.
Let's see if we want to keep reading this. Give me a second. Let me skim it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So can you tell us a little bit about the question that got you started on this book? Woo. America in general has had very limited ways of thinking about Asian Americans. There are very few ways in which we exist in the popular imagination. In the mid to late 19th century, all the way through the late 1940s and 1950s, Asian were thought of as brown hordes or as yellow peril. Ooh. There was a sinister, weird Fu Manchu stereotype.
Fu Manchu, yeah.
Oh, Fu Manchu stereotype. Yet by the middle of the 1960s, Asian Americans had undergone this really arresting racial makeover. Political leaders, journalists, social scientists, all these people in the public eye seem to suddenly be praising Asian Americans as so-called model minorities. I thought that might be a very interesting question to try to unravel. Okay, I don't want to get into all this stuff with the book. Y'all got to go read this. It's at the Washington Post. It was free. So go read it.
What's the name of the article again? Just so people...
we're going to go back to the top.
All right. Again,
okay.
Washington Post?
It's Washington Post. The real reason the U.S. became less racist towards Asians. I'll try to remember to put it in the description box, but I'm busy. I work. Like, y'all don't understand how much time me and Mud spend doing this thing.
They heard you.
Yeah,
and there's also a video in there.
Y'all got to do the slightest bit of legwork sometimes. Yeah, they got a video. It'll be interesting to see what that's about, but I don't want to play it because whatever. Okay.
Yeah, that's another time. Come on.
Yeah. Okay. So we did that. So should we move into the economic empowerment act?
Yes, that's what I've been waiting for.
Yeah.
Well, I want to start here. Can you read this part? Because we're going to start with the history, because this is the first one. So read the history with the Clintons. Okay, so I talk about this shit all the time because, Asians keep talking about how they worked hard and they didn't have to ask nobody for nothing. I can't whoop-de-woo, but y'all stay
the
with
same
y'all
old white
hand
folks
out.
shit. Yeah, they were the same white folks shit. They talk about the Homestead Act. I don't know nothing about that. All right, here we go. History. Clinton administration. On June 7th, 1999, President Bill Clinton signed Executive Order 13125. Again, Executive Order 13125 under Bill Clinton to establish the first White House initiative on Asian American and Pacific Islander, Pacific Islander, in order to improve the quality of life of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders through increased participation in federal programs where they may be underserved, e.g., health, human services, education, housing, labor, transportation, and economic and community development. The executive order called on all federal departments to mobilize their resources to address the unmet needs of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Prior to the signing of Executive Order 13125, the United States presidential executive order related to APIs, AAPIs, meaning Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, was Executive Order 9066 that led to internment of Japanese Americans during World War II.
Okay, that's good. Sorry. Go finish that little piece, and then we'll slide up because they keep going. Go ahead.
Okay. Under the Clinton administration, the executive order housed the initiative under the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Health Resources and Services Administration.
Perfect. Now let's roll up because that was under Clinton. And then there was one for Obama too. But we can jump to the Trump one because they got one under Trump too.
Wait a minute. And minorities can go talk to Trump and ask him for something? I thought we weren't allowed to do that. Oh, only us. My bad.
Only black people. Only black people are not allowed to. So
I get it now.
Sorry. Here we go. Okay, the AAP background and context. The AAPI community is the fastest growing racial group in the country. The AAPI community grew 46%. This is all through immigration. This is not through growth rate through birth, just so people understand. Not making a comment on it. I'm just saying, like, if you would stop imprisoning black people and killing us and give us this money that you keep giving to other groups that you're not giving us, our population would grow too. But our population is just going to balloon because black Americans are our own ethnicity. We don't just get to pick other people from around the country to boost our numbers. But and will more than double to 47 million by 2060. These are approximately 22 million AAPI Native Hawaiian residing in the United States, approximately 6% of the U.S. population, representing over 40 countries and ethnic groups that speak over 100 different languages. In 2018, the AAPI wielded $1 trillion. Oh, this purchasing power bullshit. Sorry, they talk about black people with that all the time. It gets on my nerves. President Donald Trump wants to build on that economic empowerment. The soaring American economy of 2019 is benefiting a number of historically, no, it wasn't, such as African Americans. No, it didn't actually, and Hispanics. No, it didn't.
Yeah, we've been going in reverse.
Yeah, we've been going in reverse. The Asian community is no exception. Well, because they get economic empowerment acts. Unemployment for their segment has reached the lowest levels ever recorded. That's the same bullshit they were saying about black people.
2.1% unemployment?
Yeah.
What the fuck? We have never seen those numbers since slavery.
Ever.
Wow. Because we were always employed in slavery. We know why. But go ahead.
Yeah, fully employed. Okay. On May 13, 2019, President Trump signed an executive order to establish an advisory commission on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, along with the White House initiative to help broaden access to more employers and other economic resources for the AAPI community. So they got a commission through an executive order.
They got a whole commission. Wow.
The contributors of Americans of Asian and Pacific Islander descent are firm. Sorry, I'm getting tongue tied. Forgive me, y'all. Let me take off my glasses too. This shit is hurting me. Okay. Island descent are firmly woven into the diverse fabric of our nation. President Trump said in a recent proclamation, these Americans bolster our economy as entrepreneurs, business owners, and employees who initiate and expand opportunities. But y'all have college degrees when you come here. Then your next generation gets to benefit from that. Plus you're getting government handouts and you're telling Black people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps.
Wait a minute, Sam. They're entrepreneurs and business owners. Wait a minute, that's participating in capitalism. I thought.
Oh yeah.
I thought we were supposed to do. I thought we weren't supposed to do that.
Where you at?
I thought we weren't supposed to do that, Sam. That's Asian capitalism. Wow, that's weird.
Mud, I know you want some of this because you've been researching this shit too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny game because Hispanics have executive orders like this too.
Yep.
We don't have this type of shit. Nope. Like, there's nothing specific for us, and the only thing that comes close is when they're doing like a general racial study type thing, which is going to be for everybody.
Yep.
So, like, I mean, and it's funny because everybody wants to act like, you know, they just did it all on their own, and it's not the reality. The white people didn't do it. None of these other groups did it. And the only people that have to do it on their own is us.
Mm-hmm. That's what Marissa Baradaran said, right? She said the only people that are doing pure capitalism is Black folks because we nobody's helping us because government isn't helping us. That's wild.
You have anything else, Mud? I want you to be able to.
That's it. That's all I got for now.
So I want to take this time because a lot of y'all who have come over here from the Fred Hampton leftists to troll our comments. I know you don't even bother to watch the videos, but for the stupid people who watch our videos for some reason and hate watch, I want you to understand this. Like, when you keep saying like, well, everybody's struggling. We need to help everybody. The government is helping other groups. We are the only group not getting shit. Us, for the most part. I'm going to say some poor whites, but y'all poor whites is getting hit in that Clyburn 10, 20, 30 plan. So not all of y'all, but that shit is a white handout because the majority of the people getting hit by this shit are white or Native Americans. So that's not our people.
The poor white farmers were about to get a piece of that farmer bill. Like,
and Black folks still didn't get nothing. And
they still haven't gotten shit. Like I'm
know.
saying, like the only people who don't get shit from the government are poor Black people and Black people just in general. So for those of you who are coming to me and saying that I need to put other people and y'all bullshit ahead of me, fuck you. Everybody else is getting handouts from the government. I want my motherfucking piece of the fucking pie or else I will burn this goddamn table. Because I don't care. Like, I'm getting tired of y'all. Like, y'all sit here and be like, get a job, do this, do that. Like, why can't we have some government help and some government handouts like you motherfuckers get? Like, get off the tit. Get off the government tit. Everybody give back that money. Give back those fucking business loans. Give back all that minority bullshit that you guys are fighting for while you're telling us we shouldn't get shit. Go ahead, MG. Fuck them.
Yeah, fuck them. I mean, you're making a valid point. They keep telling us that our stuff should go back on the back burner, like it's ever been off the back burner. We're trying to drag it off the back burners, kicking and screaming, and all they want to do is push it back on the back burner after us being here 400 years and building the goddamn country and having the absolute lowest return on that investment of any group in the country, including Native Americans, because they're being served to a degree. They're not getting fully what they should be getting according to their treaties. But they're getting cuts, though. They're getting exactly. They're getting something.
Forgive me for cutting you off, but remember they got money in the COVID package, so they are getting money. Go ahead.
Yeah, and they continue to get money. They get written into every budget. That's part of the deal. They get written into every budget as a group. Right? And all as groups, rather, as groups and subgroups. But all of us, it's a different story. So it's just wild, man. It's just wild to me.
Oh, and I'm so happy that I pulled up this Barack Obama shit. MG, read this shit for me. Just read the Barack Obama quote. Because this is for the Economic Empowerment Act that Barack Obama did for Asians. So the website's still up. But just read that cute little quote that Obama put up, and then I'm gonna go find some shit on Twitter.
Okay. When any of our citizens are unable to fulfill their potential due to factors that have nothing to do with their talent, character, and work ethic, then I believe there's a role for our government to play. Well, ain't that a bitch?
Okay. Oh yeah. Ooh, baby. You red meat. Oh, y'all don't understand the way my brain works. If you was in my head, y'all would be like, God damn, this bitch is nuts. And look, and our story has it right here for me. I love you, boo. I remember who originally did this shit.
Why not say?
Boom.
Why not target the African American community? Why not target the African American community?
I wanted to stop. Okay, MG, I want you to read that one more time, and then I'm gonna slide back over to the Twitter because I just feel like it'll sound better if you say it one more time and then I play this because I'm an asshole and I fucking hate Barack Obama. I hate you, white man with a Kenyan daddy.
Okay. When any of our citizens are unable to fulfill their potential due to factors that have nothing to do with their talent, character, or work ethic, then I believe there's a role for our government to play.
All right. So, same Barack Obama.
Why not target the African American community? Why not say then, this is for you? This is for African Americans. If there was a banking crisis, then you target money for the banks. If there was a national disaster, you target your money for the national for disaster relief.
That's not how America works. We want to give those young people and young Native Americans like them the support they deserve. We have to invest in them and believe in them and love them.
Why not target the African American community? Why not say then, this is for you? This is for African Americans.
That's not how America works.
President Barack Obama has begun new initiatives aimed at helping young American Indians or Native Americans overcome the many challenges they face, from poverty to substance abuse.
Why not target the African American community? Why not say then, this is for you? This is for African Americans.
That's not how America works. And few have been more marginalized and ignored by Washington for as long as Native Americans, our first Americans.
Why not target the African American community? Why not say then, this is for you? This is for African Americans.
That's not how America works.
Fuck you, Barack Obama. Fuck you. Yep, fuck you, Barack Obama.
Mm-hmm. Hey, look up his 2016.
Okay, you have countries like India that have tried to help untouchables with essential affirmative action programs, but hasn't fundamentally changed the structure of the societies. This is all Obama. So the bottom line is that it's hard to find a model in which you can particularly administer and sustain political support for these kind of efforts, which is doing shit for African Americans. And what makes America complicated as well is the degree to which this is not just a black white society, and it's becoming less so every year. So since they didn't pay us in 1865 when it was a black white society because fucking racists didn't want to, now because we have new immigrants we can't pay. Sorry, back to the reading. So how do Latinos feel if there's a big investment just in the African American community? And they're looking around saying, we're poor as well. What kind of help are we getting? Or Asian Americans who say, look, I'm a first generation immigrant and I clearly didn't have anything to do with what was taking place. And now you start getting into trying to calibrate.
So
should I read what Coach said, or you just want to go?
Nah, I just want to say, as he says this, remember we started off with talking about an executive order he was doing for Asian Americans, right? Mm-hmm. And why it was specifically for them, and then saying it's going to be left out if they do something specifically for us.
Yep.
What kind of fuckery is this?
It's a bunch of fuckery.
It's like a transfer of responsibility, right? Anytime we need something, they transfer the responsibility for everybody else onto us. Right? It's like dude tried to do in our comments. He tried to make us responsible for what's going on and everything going on in the country. Therefore, you must let go of our claim that has never been addressed. right? So that's that transfer of responsibility onto an oppressed group. Number one, is vile. Number two, it's irrational.
Mud, what's the Thomas Kramer article where he does the rebuttal when people say that nobody, that they weren't here? You know which one it is. It's my favorite.
Hey, family, I got a dip. I'll talk to y'all a little bit later. All right.
See you later. Bye.
All right. Much love. Yeah.
Because we're pretty much finishing up here, anyways.
Professor's case for African American reparations, is that the
Boom.
one?
Yep, it's here. Here we are. So Obama said, so y'all, I need everybody to remember this name. It's a professor's case for African American reparations. Thomas Kramer is the economist that this is about. Everybody needs to Google this. You should have this bookmarked because a lot of the rebuttals you need is literally right here. We're not going to get into his history. You can do that work. Or maybe Mud will be nice enough to put in a video for us for that part. Where it is, the question. Nope, I like that you did that, but let's get into, nope. Okay, here we go. Okay, well, let's do all of it. What would you say to the argument that reparations shouldn't be paid because no one living today is a slave or a slave owner? The passage of time sometimes leads to objections, such as there's no present day injustice that is being perpetrated. Therefore, reparations should not be paid. My response to that would be that there are inheritances being handed down to the hands of people whose ancestors did not do the hard work, instead of being handed down to the hands of African American families whose ancestors did the hard work. That is the present day injustice that has nothing to do with any pain and suffering back then. It has to do with a current injustice. What you think about that, Mud? What you think about that?
I mean, he's speaking nothing but the truth.
Ooh, wait. All right, what is it? We're not going to get into the political disagreement. I want to get into, does he actually talk about the immigration thing in this one, or am I thinking of another one?
I don't know. Do find the control.
Oh yeah. What would I look for? What would control find?
For the immigration or immigrants.
Oh yeah. No. Maybe it wasn't that one. Oh well, but still, I think that was a good one for that, anyways. But I like but there's another one. It's like if you immigrate to a country, you are responsible for the debts as well as the surpluses. Like you come to this country because this country is the richest country in the world. If you don't want to have to pay its debts, you don't have to come here. And I'm not saying you should leave. I'm just saying me and Mud can't take our families and move to Germany and say that we're not going to pay reparations to the Jews because that is the debt of that country. And if I go there and work there, my taxes will be paying that.
For me, it's the same thing as like the national debt. Like you can't come over here talking about you're not going to pay the national debt. Like you're not going to pay taxes towards the national debt. Like what kind of, nah, that's not how this shit works.
That's not how any of this works.
You're an American citizen and we have an American government that taxes us and prints money and does all these programs. And honestly, you really don't have much say in the matter.